What if I told you that the most powerful move you can make is to say nothing at all? I know, it sounds strange, right? Because we live in a world that rewards noise. People who talk the loudest, post the most, react the fastest. They get attention. And somewhere along the way, we started believing that silence means weakness, that if you're not constantly talking, you're invisible. But here's the truth. It's the quiet ones who hold the real power. Think about it. When was the last time you were in a conversation and someone stayed silent, just looking, just listening? Didn't it make you curious what they were thinking? Didn't it make you feel like their words, when they finally came, would matter? That's the power of silence. It's not about ignoring people, it's about choosing strength over reaction. And here's something Mel Robbins says all the time: you're one decision away from a completely different life. Imagine if that decision was to stop filling every gap with noise. Imagine if you gave yourself permission to just stop. No explanations, no overthinking, just quiet. Because quiet is where you hear yourself think. Quiet is where your gut speaks up and says, hey, this is what you really want. But you can't hear it if you're always talking, always posting, always reacting. Most people are terrified of silence because it feels uncomfortable. You know why? Because silence forces you to deal with yourself. It forces you to hear your own thoughts, your own doubts, your own truth. And let me tell you, leaning into that discomfort, that's where power lives. You don't need to always have the last word. You don't need to fill every pause. You don't need to explain yourself every second of the day. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is say nothing and let your presence speak for you. Silence doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're in control. It means you're choosing power over noise. And Mel Robbins says it best: you're never going to feel like it. You're never going to feel ready. So stop waiting, stop filling the space, and just sit in the silence. That's where your power begins. Silence makes most people squirm. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Those awkward pauses in conversations where you feel like you have to say something, anything, just to fill the gap. Why? Because silence feels like exposure. It feels like people are looking at you, judging you, wondering why you're not speaking. But here's the truth. That discomfort you feel in silence, that's not weakness, that's conditioning. We live in a world that never shuts up. Social media, notifications, news, people talking over each other, it's constant noise. And somewhere along the way, we were taught that if you're not speaking, you're not relevant. If you're quiet, people will forget you. So we fill the silence. We talk too much, explain too much, overshare, all because silence feels unsafe. But here's what Mel Robbins says that I love. Your brain is wired to avoid discomfort, but discomfort is exactly where you grow. That's why silence feels weird. You're stepping into a space your brain doesn't know how to control. You can't edit it, you can't filter it, you can't take it back. It's just you sitting in it. And that's why silence is powerful. The people who are truly confident don't rush to fill every gap. They don't panic when there's quiet. They let it sit. They hold eye contact. They take a breath before answering, because they know their worth isn't tied to how much noise they make. Silence creates space, and in that space, you gain control over your thoughts, your emotions, and the situation around you. You want to know why most people can't handle silence? Because it forces them to hear themselves. And sometimes what we hear in our own heads is uncomfortable. But Mel Robbins says it best: you can't change your life if you're not willing to hear yourself think. That's why learning to sit with silence, to let it exist without panicking, is one of the most powerful skills you can ever develop. Because if you can master your own discomfort, you can master anything. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is power. And if you understand how to use it, it changes everything. Your conversations, your relationships, your confidence, even how people perceive you. Because here's the truth. When you are quiet, you are in control. You're not just reacting, you're choosing. And that choice, that's where real strength comes from. Think about someone you admire, a leader, a mentor, maybe even someone in your own life who just seems unshakable. What do they do when things get tense? They don't rush in with noise. They don't panic and talk just to talk. They pause, they listen, they create space. And when they finally do speak, people lean in because they know it's going to matter. That's what silence does. It gives weight to your words. Most people don't realize this, but silence is one of the strongest forms of communication. You don't have to shout to be heard. In fact, the people who are always shouting, always talking, always trying to fill the room, they usually get ignored. But someone who stays quiet, someone who only speaks when it matters, they have presence. People notice. People listen. There's also another kind of power in silence, clarity. When you're quiet, you actually hear yourself think. You notice what you're feeling. You notice what's happening around you. You stop reacting out of impulse and start responding with intention. That's huge, because most mistakes people make, they happen in the heat of the moment. When they're talking before thinking. Silence gives you space to think, and that space changes how you move in the world. And then there's confidence. Confidence isn't loud. Confidence doesn't have to prove itself. Confidence doesn't need constant validation. Confidence can sit quietly, look someone in the eye, and say absolutely nothing, and still communicate strength. That's why some of the best negotiators in the world use silence on purpose. They'll ask a question, and then they stop talking. Because silence is pressure. Silence makes people feel it. Silence makes people reveal things. And the person who can sit in that silence without flinching, that's the person with the power in the room. But let's bring it closer to home. Your life, your relationships, your decisions. What would happen if, instead of reacting immediately when someone pushed your buttons, you just stayed quiet? You didn't snap. You didn't fire back. You just paused. That moment of silence, it gives you control. It keeps you from saying something you'll regret. It keeps you in charge of you. And that is power. You also start to notice things in silence that you'd never see when you're filling every gap with words. People show you who they are. If you let them talk, you learn what really matters to them. You pick up on energy, emotion, body language, stuff you'd miss if you were busy thinking about what to say next. Here's something Mel Robbins says that I love. You can't listen if you're too busy talking. And it's true. When you're quiet, you're not just listening to others, you're listening to yourself. That's how you make better decisions. That's how you build better relationships. That's how you become the person in the room who people respect, not because you talk the most, but because when you do talk, it lands. And listen, I know what you might be thinking, but if I'm quiet, won't people think I'm shy? Won't they think I don't have anything to say? No, people will think you're intentional. People will think you're thoughtful. People will see that you're someone who doesn't waste words, and that makes your words more powerful. So here's what I want you to take from this. Silence isn't empty. Silence is full, full of confidence, full of strength, full of control. It's not about avoiding life. It's about mastering it. Mel Robbins says it perfectly. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. And that's the truth. When you own your silence, you own yourself. And that is real power. Being quiet doesn't just change how people see you. It changes you. And I mean at your core. Because silence isn't just about keeping your mouth shut. It's about creating space in your life for clarity, confidence, and control. Most of us move through life like it's one giant reaction. We talk without thinking. We respond out of habit. We fill every second with noise because we're afraid of what we might feel if things go still for even one moment. But when you choose to be quiet, you start to notice something. You feel different. Silence changes the way your brain works. You think clearer because you're not rushing to fill every gap with words. You listen better, which means you actually understand more. You start hearing your own thoughts again. And when you hear yourself think, you make better decisions. Mel Robbins says it all the time. You can't change your life if you're not willing to hear yourself think. And she's right. Quiet gives you that gift. You start separating what's urgent from what's important. You stop reacting to every little thing and start responding with intention. You also gain emotional control. Think about how many arguments, how many fights, how many regrets are born out of quick words. We say things in anger we don't mean. We react because it's easy. But silence gives you a buffer, a pause, a chance to breathe before you do something you'll regret. That's strength. That's emotional maturity. And here's the surprising part. When you stay quiet, instead of reacting, people pay attention. They respect it. Because most people can't do it. There's another shift too, confidence. When you can sit in silence and not feel the need to prove yourself, something powerful happens inside you. You stop chasing validation. You stop trying to perform for other people's approval. You just are. And that energy, people feel it. It's why quiet people often have the strongest presence in a room. They're not desperate to be seen. They already know who they are. Being quiet also changes how you connect with others. When you listen more than you talk, you build trust faster. People feel heard, understood, valued. That's how you build real relationships, at work, at home, everywhere. Because when someone feels like you're actually listening, instead of waiting for your turn to talk, they open up. They tell you what they really think, how they really feel, and that builds connections. You can't fake. And then there's your own sense of peace. Life is loud, phones buzzing, notifications popping, constant conversations. Choosing silence, even for a few minutes a day, resets you. It's like hitting pause on all the chaos, so you can breathe, so you can think, so you can just be. And in that space you grow. You become stronger, calmer, clearer about who you are and what you want. Mel Robbins says, your silence is your power, because in silence, you learn who you are. And she's right. When you stop trying to fill the world with noise, you finally get to hear yourself. And once you hear yourself, you can start living on purpose, not just on autopilot. That's the power of being quiet. Practicing silence in today's world feels like trying to stand still in the middle of a hurricane. Everywhere you look, there's noise, phones buzzing, people talking, music blasting, notifications lighting up your screen every 5 seconds. We've been trained to react to every sound, every ping, every conversation, like it's urgent. And that's why silence feels so rare and uncomfortable. But here's the thing, you can train yourself to be quiet. And when you do, it changes everything. Start small. The next time you're in a conversation, pause before you respond. That pause, that's power. It shows you're thinking, not just reacting. It gives your words weight when you do speak. And it shifts the dynamic. You're no longer rushing to fill silence. You're using it. Mel Robbins says, when you pause, you gain control. When you pause, you choose. That pause is your first step toward mastering silence. Another way to practice, create silent moments in your day, on purpose. Turn off the music in the car and drive in silence. Put your phone down for 5 minutes and just sit. No scrolling, no talking, no background noise, just quiet. At first it might feel weird. You'll want to grab your phone or turn on something to fill the gap. But stay with it. That discomfort, that's your brain learning how to be still again. In conversations, try listening more than you talk. Most people aren't actually listening. They're waiting for their turn to respond. Flip that. Focus entirely on the other person, not on what you're going to say next. You'll be surprised how much people reveal when you give them space. And it does something else too. It builds trust. People feel valued when they feel heard. And silence is what gives them that feeling. Here's another tip. Schedule silence. Yes, schedule it. Block out 10 minutes a day where you just unplug and go quiet. No notifications, no TV, just you and your thoughts. Mel Robbins says it perfectly. You can't hear your own voice when the world is too loud. Silence gives you back your power. When you make silence a habit, you stop reacting to life and start leading it. You feel calmer, clearer, and more in control, even when everything else is chaos. That's the power of choosing quiet in a noisy world. All right, let's make this personal. I'm talking directly to you right now. I want you to stop whatever you're doing for a second and think about this. Where in your life are you feeling silence because you're uncomfortable? Is it that awkward pause in conversation? Is it that moment when you're alone, so you grab your phone and scroll just to avoid sitting with your own thoughts? Is it when someone challenges you, and instead of pausing, you rush to defend yourself? Here's your challenge. Stop. Just one stop. The next time you're about to fill the space with noise, hold it. Breathe. Let the silence hang there. I know it's gonna feel weird at first. Your brain's gonna scream. Say something. Do something. But that feeling, that's growth. That's you stepping into a space most people can't. I want you to pick one moment tomorrow, just one, where you choose silence. Maybe it's when someone criticizes you, and instead of firing back, you just listen. Maybe it's when you're sitting alone in your room, and instead of grabbing your phone, you just sit in the quiet for 5 minutes. One moment. Because Mel Robbins says it best, you are one decision away from a completely different life. And that decision can be as small as staying silent when everything in you wants to fill the air with noise. And here's what I want you to do. Tell me about it. Comment below and share where in your life could silence give you more power. I want to hear it. And so will the other people watching this. Your answer might inspire someone else to try it. You're not just watching this video to nod along. You're here to change something. So change it. Commit to one silent moment tomorrow. Then come back and tell us what happened. Because that's how you grow. One small decision at a time. Mel Robbins says, your life comes down to your decisions. If you want to change your life, change your decisions. This is your decision. Take it, own it, and watch what happens when you choose silence instead of noise. Listen, you just spent the last few minutes learning about something most people overlook their entire lives. The power of being quiet and silent. You're already ahead of 90% because you're not just consuming noise. You're learning how to master it. But here's the thing. Watching this video means nothing if you don't do something about it. I want you to stop right now and think, where could silence give you more power? Is it in your conversations? Is it when you're stressed out at work? Is it when you feel like you have to prove yourself in every single room you walk into? There's an area in your life right now that could transform if you just learn to pause and shut down. And you know exactly where that is. Here's what I need you to do. Comment below. Don't just watch and move on. Engage. Write one sentence. I'm choosing silence. And finish it. Say it out loud in the comments. Because the moment you put it out there, you're committing to it. You're telling yourself, I'm doing this. That's how change happens. Mel Robbins says it perfectly. Your life comes down to your decisions. So decide right now. And if this hit you, even just a little, subscribe. Not because I said so, but because if you're serious about becoming stronger, calmer, and more in control, you need this community. We're building something here. People who are done with the noise, done with reacting. We're about taking back control, one decision at a time. And if that's you, you belong here. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and share this with someone you know who talks too much, reacts too fast, or just needs to hear the power of it. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone else is share something that changes the way they see their own life. Mel Robbins says, you are one decision away from a completely different life. Maybe this is that decision for you. One small step to a completely different way of showing up. Choose it. Comment, subscribe, and then go live it.